Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Rocky Brand. I am slightly out of frame, so let me just nudge myself over. Hope everyone is well this week and looking forward to today's stream and having a chat with you all. So we've already got some people waiting or viewing, which is great. Hopefully some people from the Rocky Brand Discord, which you can see the URL for that. If you haven't joined yet, you should join us. It's a great place to be. So we've got David, who's joined the chat, Lise, who's joined the chat, both brand rockers from the group. So that's great to get some support from people there. David's already mocking me for my moderation skills in the Discord. I'm a stickler for trying to keep things clean and tidy so that it's easy to follow conversations, and people are ignoring my rules. But hopefully get everybody following the threads and stuff there. But yeah, the Discord is really starting to take off now, and it's great to see all those conversations happening. Ephraim's here, Crazy Reg is here. That's a name. P.S. Prabin probably completely butchered that, but thanks for joining. So today, what we're going to do is I'm just checking my streaming stuff, and it's telling me that there may be some buffering going on. So if there is, I apologize for that, but the web speed should be absolutely fine. So today's topic is we're going to be looking at just some advice really on how to sell the logo concept. So when you get to that point of you've created the logo design and you want to get it over that finish line and have the client accept it, because that's the end goal and that's what we get paid for. But many people struggle with that, and they find that part the hardest part of the hey Adam, find that the hardest part almost of the whole logo design process. They may find the actual logo creation good, won't say easy. Some people might find it easy, but when it comes to presenting it and getting it over the line and signed off, many people struggle with that side of it. And I think that's because a lot of it's left until that moment to almost discuss the logo with the client, so it's in two parts. Client comes to you and says, hey, I need a logo. You do whatever you do. Some people send out a questionnaire, some people do a quick interview, and then the next time you see the client is when you present the logo. And for me, I did that. I've done everything. I've probably made every mistake that everyone watching this has made, and I've learned from that, and I've created the way that I do it, which I'll walk you through today. Hey Ali, thanks for joining. Reddit Creepy. So we've got France in here, we've got India in here, we've got people from Europe in here, we've got UK in here. Awesome, good to see. So there seems to be, for a lot of people, this gap where they don't talk to the client for quite some time, and that's something that I'll mention as well today, is talking about time when you're creating your logo designs. Esteban's here from Argentina, Crazy Ridge from Nigeria. Wow, we've got everybody from all over, and hello from Scotland. So let's just go through it. This isn't going to be like some major accreditation that you're going to get tonight, but I want to just talk through some things, because what always I have to keep reminding myself is that a lot of the things that I do naturally now as part of my process isn't something that other people naturally have introduced to their process. It's that sort of, I think they call it the curse of knowledge. You know something and you're in a space and you know so much about that space that you start to forget that what you think is basic is brand new to someone else and they've never done it or they don't know what it means. So the curse of knowledge can be terrible at times, and especially when it comes to people who are in a specific field. And it's no different for designers. We can have the curse of knowledge as well. Something as simple as talking about JPEGs. So you might just, have a conversation with a client and just throw in there, I'm going to need to get a JPEG of your logo that you've already, if it's a rebrand, for example, or they're looking for a new logo, but they've already got one. And you just happen to say, hey, I'm looking for a JPEG of your logo so that I can see where it is. They might not know what a JPEG is, and you've already kind of lost them. And it's really important to not make the person on the other side feel in any way, not inferior, but you want them to feel like they're on the same level as you, and you want to be communicating with them on the same level. And that's one of the points which I have here. So I don't want to kind of jump the gun. Just wanted to kind of give a quick intro there as to the types of things that we'll talk about tonight. And Dan's saying that communication is very important. And that's it, it's 100%. We all focus on being great designers, as in design skills. But what I find is lacking is the softer skills. So stuff like communication and how we communicate what it is that we're doing for the client. And that tends to be lacking. And it is something that I want to go into in more depth, I suppose. I am looking to and I've discussed this before, I've discussed it in the Discord group, and I think I've discussed it on a few videos, some form of mentorship to teach designers the softer skills when it comes to the design industry. Not, how to design a logo, but basically client liaison. How do you deal with clients? How do you deal with pricing? How do you deal with, the communication? How do you sell your logo? All that kind of thing, which most people have to pick up just from experiences. And usually it's from bad experiences that you learn the most, because you're like, I don't want to do that again. How can I make sure that doesn't happen? So, I want to try to limit the amount of bad experiences that you will have, help you leapfrog those, hurdle those, so that you don't have to trip up to learn a lesson. You can just, get all the lessons in a good way, and then that will help you when it comes to selling your services and selling the end product to the client. Hey Donna, I'm not seeing you for a while. Donna's jumped in the chat. She's saying it's been a while and she just saw this by chance and decided to stop by from St. Kitts. This is awesome to see everybody coming from different places. So the first thing I would say is get your clients involved. Sometimes I've had clients, when I say they'll come to me and they'll want to hire me to create, it doesn't have to be a logo, it can be anything. And you can everything I say today doesn't necessarily have to just be logo related. It's all about just getting projects over that finish line. But I will be kind of basing it on as if this was we're selling a logo here. Lost my little train of thought there. Getting clients involved. Some clients will tell you that they're too busy and they're paying you to design the logo. I haven't got time to be involved. You're the expert. Here's the money. Go design me a logo. And I personally won't take clients on that don't want to be involved in the creation of their own logo design, because I need them to be involved, because I need their interest. I need them to be enthusiastic about it. And I will be, calling on them at certain points throughout the process for feedback. I might need some something might crop up when I'm doing some research and a question, a piece of information that I need that's cropped up because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That wasn't discussed. I need to speak to them about that. If you can't get access to the client, you're kind of going to be working blind for a lot of the time, and that's where a lot of the trepidation and the fear can come when you are a way to present the logo, because you're in the dark. It can be hit or miss, and you're like, okay, we had the meeting at the start, they filled out my questionnaire, they've answered some questions, but this is it. This is where it's make or break. But if you have the client involved all the way through, then by the time it gets to presenting the logo and getting it over that line that I talked about, nothing should really be a surprise to them. Now, they may not have seen the actual logo concept or the logo design, but all of your discussions leading up to what you're about to present should make the client, when they see that logo concept, go, this fits. This fits everything that I've been discussing with Carl over these weeks. This makes perfect sense. I can see why this logo concept is in front of me. I can see why this fits my brand. If you don't have the client involved, then there is a good chance you're going to spend most of that presentation where you present it where the client's giving you pushback, because there's going to be a lot of, I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm not sure that that's the right thing for us, because they've not been involved in discussions around, color, typography, and more importantly, the meanings, the meaning behind color and the different feelings and personalities that typography can bring to the logo. And so you're going to get probably a lot of personal likes and dislikes. I don't like this, I don't like that. Whereas when you have them in the journey, you can constantly be saying to them that this logo is for the brand, it's not for you. And you just, by having the conversations, by the time you get to that presentation, they're fully on board that the logo, it doesn't matter if they don't like red. They understand that from the research and the processes of creating the logo, that red is the right color for the personality type that they want the brand to have, and it may be that red is the color which attracts their ideal customer because they've looked into it being energetic and powerful, and so they've gone with red. But they personally might not like red. So it's really important that the client is involved. Now, like I say, I generally don't take on clients these days who aren't willing to get involved, because I know that it's two things. One of two things are going to happen, or two things are going to happen. They're not going to understand the logo process, so they're not going to be fully on board by the end of it. And I'm probably going to have to spend a lot of time in that presentation convincing them. And we had this chat in the Discord the other day about how do you convince a client to like your logo that you've created. I don't like having to convince anyone. It should be natural. It should be, this is the right fit. It shouldn't be about convincing someone, because that feels like you're pushing them into it. I'm going to convince you that this is the right thing. If you are talking to them all the way through, there's no convincing involved. It's the right thing for the brand. I hope that makes sense from that respect. Let me just check the chat here. Dan's saying getting to know a client is not just gathering information. Correct. You really need to get inside their head, and you're not going to do that from like a 30, even a 1 hour discovery session. You need to get to know that client. Donna's saying this makes a lot of sense, having the client involved in every or most steps. You need to be careful, because you don't want the client to feel that you're going to be taking up a huge amount of their time. everyone's busy, and the last thing the client needs, and if they're busy, is like, oh my God, there's something else I'm going to have to deal with. And that's why, and we'll get, I don't know if I actually got this written down, but having a process that you can go to a client with, this is my logo design process. On average, it takes this long. Here are the steps in that process, and here is where I will need to speak to you within that process. So today, what we can do is we can get those meetings booked in so they're in your schedule well in advance. And I'm not going to be, calling you up saying I need to have a call with you today because I've finished this part of the design process. And that does two things. One, it shows that you're really well organized and you have a solid process. And two, it means that they can get it booked into their calendar, but it also tells them that you're going to meet deadlines. Because you don't want to be calling them up and go, oh, I've not finished that yet. Can we move that? It's going to keep you on track as well. It's going to mean that I've got this deadline, I've got this meeting, I have to discuss typography, I have to discuss color, whatever it is. So I need to be ready for that. So having the process there is a really, really good thing to have. And I know that there are probably quite, having a process or developing a process takes time. You can probably go, there's probably websites and stuff. I mean, I've got my process, which I've talked about, I'm sure, in a video, and you could try to follow my process. But I find that trying to follow someone else's process can be tricky if you're not used to it or used to that way of working. Everyone develops their own process over time. So if you're new to this, then it's going to be tricky because you won't have a process because you're still learning. But all I would say is be comfortable with that. It will come over time. You don't have to have a solid process right away, but you do want to have at least a rough outline for the client of what the stages are that you go through. You don't have to give the real exact timelines, but go through that. That kind of made me think about a post which I saw on the Logo Geek Facebook group earlier today, where someone had run into a problem with a client. They'd done a logo for this person's friend, and they were recommended to this person to do a logo for them, and they had a meeting. It was all discussed, and I think it was done on an hourly rate. An hourly rate was discussed, and the project was completed and the logo was done, and this person went back to the client and it was £300, £20 an hour, which really isn't much, but they said, they're just starting out and they know that that's a low fee. But the client then turned around and said they expected that they would be paying £50 for the logo, not 300. And so, then there was that awkward conversation of, I've done all this work, I've done this research, it takes quite a bit of time to create a logo, and the reason, and he'd said that his friend he'd only charged £67 or something, but that person had given him a drawing of what they wanted the logo to be like. So really it was just artworking. So it was an entirely different project. There was miscommunication going on. And in the end, what happened was the client said they didn't want to use the logo, and they paid him £100. But he said in his post that he was going to give them that money back because he didn't want to feel tied in any way, and wasn't wanting that client to then go and use the logo in future and say, well, I paid you some money, so I'm going to use it. I personally think he's made the right choice. If that was me, I would send that money back to the client as well. A, as a goodwill gesture, and B, so as to not be tied to that person in terms of, they've paid me some money for work done. But it's just, that just to me shows some of the pitfalls of hourly working. And I much recommend that if you're doing logo design, that you charge a flat fee. There will be people who are watching this who are like, nope, no, that's the wrong way to do it, because sometimes a logo will take way longer than you think. And that's true. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it will go more quickly. Sometimes it'll be a logo job where you just come up with the perfect concept straight away and you'll make quite a bit of money on that. Now, that isn't to say that you are, you're shortchanging the client. You're charging, again, this is why I'm kind of looping back to having a process. The flat rate is based on your process. You know what it takes to create a logo, all of the steps. And so you're charging for all of those steps in a one flat fee process. And that's what you sell to the client. If you say to the client, yeah, I can do a logo design, 20 quid an hour. And then you go back to them and you say, okay, it's £1,000. What the client's automatically going to do is work out how many hours that was. And if they feel that that's far too many hours to have spent on a logo design, they will start to complain. So, but by having a process and having a flat rate, the client knows what they're going to be paying. Now, some of them may say, I can't afford that, and they don't work with you. But that's also a good thing as well, because it gets away, the phrase tire kickers, people that like come along to secondhand cars and like kick the tire to see, I don't know why they do it, but it's a phrase, a tire kicker. And you'll get people who come along to you as a designer and they're kicking tires. They want to see how much, is this going to be worth it? And that takes up your time to deal with these people. But by having a flat rate for your logo design service, when someone says, I'm looking for a logo design, how much is it going to be? You can say, here's my logo design fee, here's the process, this is how I create logos. And that will be attractive for many people because they know what they're paying and they know how long it will take. If you just say, well, it can take this long or it can take this long, and I'm an hourly rate, me as the client's going to go, well, I'm hoping it's going to take the shorter time and not the longer time that you've given me. So I want the shorter time, please, but I want my logo to still be really, really good. I wasn't going to talk about pricing tonight because it is a tricky subject, but just talking about processes, because some people might be asking, well, why do you have a process? Well, it's for that. It's so that I can charge a flat rate fee. And over the years, I've increased my logo design fee, but I haven't increased anything in the process. Sometimes people think that in order to put your prices up, you need to be doing more. You need to offer more logo concepts. You need to do more mock-ups. You need to give free business card printing. You need to do letterheads. And that's not the case. The way to charge more, you're charging more because you're more experienced, and your experience is worth something. And that's why you should be charging more. Don't feel that if to charge more, you should be doing more. That defeats the purpose. The whole point of charging more is that you're doing the same thing and you're making more money because your value is higher. So you want to be more profitable. If you increase your price but then increase the amount of things you're doing for that, the money you make is still the same, if you know what I mean. And let's say you did work out an hourly rate. Now, I have an hourly rate. I just don't charge that to clients. I use hourly rates to work out what my flat rate fees should be. So let's say it was £50 an hour. So if I'm charging, let's say £250, right, for a logo, and that's 5 hours. It's not. I'd take a lot more than 5 hours to do. I'm trying to make an easy thing here. And then I go, right, I want to charge £500 for logo design, but I think I'm going to have to maybe include some stationery design in that. Maybe I'll include some printing as well. I'll do some more mock-ups, and that adds another 5 hours. So I was charging £250 for logo design at £50 an hour. Now I'm charging £500 for logo design, but I'm doing 5 more hours of work, so I'm still £50 an hour. What you want to be doing is charging £250 an hour, then charging £500 an hour, but doing the same amount of work, and you're now making £100 an hour. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Just adding more stuff in and taking longer doesn't make you any more money. I mean, it does make you more money because you're being paid for your time. But if you're running a business, whether you're a freelancer or you've got a sole trader business and that you're trying to run as an agency type of business, you want to be making profit, which is money above what you need to make to pay your bills. You need profit too. So if you're constantly being paid for the time that you're working on stuff, that's not really, to me, that's not profit. The profit's the money you're making when you're not working on stuff. So, £250 for working on the logo stuff, but then £250 profit, which you can then use to grow your business. You need money to grow your business and put aside. Anyway, big, massive detour into pricing there, which I didn't mean to do. Let's check back up on the chat here. Let's see. Hotel Stella is saying, by personal experience, a great presentation with lots of good mock-ups always works. For a client who doesn't understand if a design is good or not, mock-ups are the best. Absolutely, 100% agree. Reddit saying the logos on Negative Space were cool. I love Negative Space logos. I really do. David saying, also true about taking the client by the hand and keeping them in there when you're telling the story. I'm getting better at that after being an arrogant artist for too many years. You have to, you kind of have to, you have to lose the ego a bit. And I understand what you're saying, David, about, the difference between an artist and a designer. I don't think all artists are egotistical, but for an artist, it's a very personal piece of work, and so you could be quite protective, and I suppose have a bit of an ego around it. But as a designer, we're there to solve design problems, and so you can't really have an ego because you're going to get a lot of pushback and sort of voices which don't agree with you. So having an ego is going to be a problem because you're going to constantly sort of. There's nothing wrong with sticking to your guns if you can back that up through data and research, and we'll talk about that as well. If it's purely your opinion, then why is your opinion better than the client's opinion? Because if you say, well, it's because I'm the designer, I know what's best, but the client knows their industry better than you and they know their customer better than you. So, if they're telling you that's not going to, then you need to be able to have a conversation and not, have this wall of, as you said, ego where you're not willing to listen. I'm the designer, I'm the expert, I know what's right. There is a certain amount of that needs to come across in confidence from you, that you are the expert, that the money they're paying you for is worth it, but it's still a two-way street. You still need to listen really, really closely to what the client is telling you. Samatia's in the room. Hey, how you doing? Crazy Red is saying, you speak the truth. I got my client involved in his logo process. I delivered it today and he loved it. One of my biggest clients so far. Fantastic. That's great to hear. David saying, as an amateur, from my research, I've learned that half now, half on delivery is a common pricing strategy. That's how I work for most of my projects. These days, because my logo projects are very rarely just logos, I do a lot of brand strategy work beforehand. The price tag can be much higher, and so in those instances, I tend to do 30% at the start, 30% at an agreed milestone, and then 40% on completion. It just breaks it down a little bit, helps the client. And I've also done 25, 25, 25, 25. And it's really up to you how you do it. The important thing is that you get money at the start, so that if the client just disappears or whatever, you've at least been paid for some of the work that you've done. Never leave it all to the end. And you may get some clients who are like, no, how do I know you're going to create something good for me? It's not an argument. It's like, pay me to do the work, pay me a deposit, a non-refundable deposit, and I'll get started. So yeah, definitely do the 50-50 thing as a minimum. Lee says, how many calls would you usually schedule with a client after the intake? So it depends on the project. If it's a brand strategy project leading into a logo, I have a call every single week with the client, and those projects can be 3 months, 4 months long. So I schedule a call with them. The brand strategy stuff can get really technical, and a lot of information. So it's really important that we keep in touch. When it comes to the logo part, not so much. Maybe over the course of it, in terms of getting them on the other end of the a Zoom call, maybe 3 times, 4 times. Most of the time what I do is I will record a video and send them a video of my thoughts and where I'm at. And then if they would like, and I'll say at the end, if you'd like to discuss this on a Zoom call, just let me know and we'll get one sorted. Otherwise, you can drop me an email with some thoughts, or just let me know if you're really happy with where we're at, and I'll just keep going. So it depends on the client. Some clients want to be really involved, and that's actually a different issue. Some clients want to be involved at every single point, and that can actually slow you down. And that is where you do have to step in and use your expert credentials and say, no, we won't get anywhere if you're constantly looking over my shoulder. So you need to sort of say, here's the best time slots that we can check in, just to let you get on with the work. Otherwise, there might just be, especially in the early stages, where things are quite nebulous, and you'll be trying out all sorts of crazy, wacky ideas just to try to land on a concept, a winning concept. And you really don't want the client involved at that stage, because you'll be trying out lots of different ideas and crazy ideas, and even you'll know that they suck, but you have to do them because there might be a little bit of something in them. You go, that's that there. I like that. I'm going to take that across. The danger of having a client involved at the sketching stage, the conceptualization stage, is that they may fixate on one of your sketches and be like, I really like that, even though you're like, that doesn't fit anything to do with your brand at all, but they are fixated on it and they won't get out of their head. And you might spend the time, create an amazing looking logo for them, present it at the end, and all they're thinking about through the whole time is, I really like that sketch I saw at the beginning. And then after you finish your presentation, they'll turn around and say, any chance you could maybe just, flesh out that sketch you had? Because I really would like to see that. It's just, and it's given me like a knot in my stomach, because I've been through that many times early in my career where I would show the client the sketches and be like, here's my sketching, here's what I've been going through, and it wasn't a good idea. So don't get them involved too early. At least get through that first stage, and then you can maybe get them involved when you've narrowed it down to a couple of directions. Me personally, I work on a one concept approach. I know that many of you probably deliver 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 concepts at the end. Here's 3 logo designs that I think are going to work, and I deliberately used the words "I think" there because we're going to talk about that as well. I think one of these will be good for your logo. Which one do you like? I used to do that. I don't anymore. I don't ask clients if they like it. I say which, do you feel this fits the brand? And more often than not, the client would be like, well, I like a bit of that one, and I like a bit of that one. Can we bring those together? And that's not how logo design works. Logo design isn't a Frankenstein's monster of different parts from different logos. A logo is developed to be, a combined sort of entity that works. It's been designed in a specific way. If you start pulling in bits from other logos, then that's not going to be great. And so I started practicing the one concept approach. So I now only present one concept, which I believe is the right concept for that client's brand. And that's where a lot of the techniques that I'm going to kind of talk about here will make that successful. There's been once or twice where the client has given major pushback on it, and we have gone back and we've maybe reworked it a little bit, but I'd say out of, let's say 20 times, 19, the client is, fully on board with the concept that I'm presenting to them. So, that's why, it's one of the reasons, but that was a difficult change. You've got to be very confident that what you're doing is, what you're presenting is the right one. And the only way that I had that confidence is when I started doing brand strategy work before starting the logo design process, because I was able to back up my design with strategic data. And so the client's like, oh, I'm not sure if we should be using that color or that typography. I'll go, well, if you remember when we were doing the brand strategy stuff and we talked about the brand archetypes and the personality that we were going for, we wanted, something that was, a little bit out there, a little bit maverick, then that's the reason that we've gone for this typeface here, which has upper and lowercase in it, because it's really maverick. You're mixing it up. And then the client's, oh yeah, of course, that's right. We said that, didn't we? We talked about that. So having the backup of a brand strategy which pushes the design makes things much easier in terms of, it made it much easier for me to design logos, for one, because I was designing based on information that was out there and, clear information. Two, it let me charge more money because I had to do all the strategy work as well. Three, it gave me much more confidence in my own abilities, in that the logos I was producing were going to be longer lasting, fit the brand well, fit the vision, fit the mission of the brand. Whereas maybe before that, it was a case of doing a logo that fitted the industry, but it was more a case of, this looks cool. This is a nice looking logo. Wasn't backed up in it with any strategy side of things. This is a nice looking logo. Even though I can probably look back on logos I did, 10, 15 years ago and be like, yeah, I wouldn't have done that anymore. I would have done that completely differently. But strategy is definitely something that you want to get into. And before we go, I'm only at point 1 and I've been talking for ages. But I just quickly want to say, for learning about it, get yourself this book. All right, get yourself The Brand Gap by. Let's try and get this in focus here. I don't have this on autofocus because it can't focus on my face. It doesn't like beards. So this is The Brand Gap by Marty Neumeier, and this should be on everyone's bookshelf, every designer's bookshelf. And basically, it's a really easy read. It's like the text is huge, and like the pages, there's lots of like big illustrations and stuff, and it's not a thick book. And it teaches you how strategy and branding should be working together, but a lot of the time they don't. They're treated like two different things or two separate things. but they need to work together in order to create a successful brand. And if you're creating a logo, which is like the identifier for that brand, it needs to be linked to the brand strategy. It just has to be. Otherwise, it's going to be weak. It'll be a weak link to the brand strategy. And that's not really what you want. You want to be able to tell your client that you've created the logo based on strategy, based on, solid thinking. So don't worry if you're not doing that right now. Hardly anybody starts that way. But like I say, I'm trying to help leapfrog you forward, miss out a couple of years of making the mistakes and, struggling for pricing and processes. Get the brand gap. There's other brand books out there as well. If you go to, I wonder if I've got this on here. Yeah. So if you go to this URL, kit.co/pixels call, all of my books that I like are there, and not all of them, most of them are there, and they're categorized. So you can have a look at that and check out the books that I highly recommend. But the brand gap should definitely be a starting point. Easy read, easy to understand, and it'll really set you up and have you thinking differently when it comes to creating logos. Let's jump back onto the chat here again. Donna's saying, I feel like this would be the highlight of my day. Glad I stopped by. Cool. I'm glad it's worth your time, Donna. Jason's saying, sometimes logos try to communicate too much about the brand. They should really act only as an identifier. Yeah. So exactly what I said. They're not there to be the kitchen sink for the brand. They really just, should just sort of stand out. People should be able to kind of glance over or get a feeling from it, and recognize it. And that takes time. A lot of clients are like, I want to be like Nike. I want to be like Apple. I want to be like, Adidas. And that took a lot of time and money for things to stick in people's head. It's actually easier now because, we do have social, and, we can kind of, we can get our brands in front of a lot of people for very little money. Because back in the day, you had to pay for TV advertising, big billboards and sponsorships and stuff. We've actually got it a lot easier these days in terms of how we can market. It's just the problem is it's now much busier. There's just so many people trying to market, and so you have to create something which is maybe going to stand out a little bit more and catch the attention. Crazy Edge saying, how about when dealing with students who can't pay for a logo at my price? So you mean students would be students are your client. You'd be designing logos for students. How about when dealing with students who can't pay for a logo at my price? All right, okay. I mean, I'm in a place where most of the people around me are students. Well, you've got two choices. You can do the work for the money that they can afford to pay, or you maybe need to start looking at changing your target audience and maybe you're, like you say, that where you are mostly students. Maybe you need to start going online and, try to raise awareness of who you are online. I had the same experience. Most of my clients were in my city, and many of them wouldn't pay a lot of money for anything. And it was only when I started creating blog posts and content for my website and stuff, and YouTube as well, that I started to get a wider reach. Then it wasn't a case of I was limited by my locality. I was able to kind of be a designer for anyone around the world. So that's probably the best way to be able to charge more as well, is to increase awareness of who you are. Or if You could also maybe see if there's any business networking events that you can go to. Maybe you want to think about niching into a specific market where you know that there's money, so you can, really do a lot of research on that industry and show yourself as an expert that way. It is difficult, but you don't want to be catering for a target audience that's always going to be students and they don't have much budget. That's going to burn you out because you're going to be doing a lot of work or you're going to have to do a lot of work to earn enough money, to have a livable income. So yeah, I think you probably want to try to come up with ways to change your audience there. Jason saying swapping the word like with works is a great way to talk about design decisions. It helps the client realize that you're making intentional design decisions. Correct. Lee's, I'd love to get to the one option process. I don't feel like I'm there yet with selling it one day. Yeah, that's the thing, is that you can probably get yourself into more trouble jumping into the one concept process when you're not ready for it. Took me a long time to get comfortable and confident enough that I could do it. And it maybe is a little bit more, can maybe be a little bit more stressful because everything hangs on that one concept. As I say, I do feel more confident because I've got the strategic side behind it, but it is still one concept that you're hanging off of. And there is maybe a little bit more of a comfort if you're presenting multiple concepts, because you're like, they'll like one of them. They'll at least like one of them. Or it's almost like, you're giving them a choice so they feel like they're getting more from you. They've given me 3 concepts. I'm getting my money's worth here. I don't really think that way. I think they're getting their money's worth more from a focused approach that goes deep dive into creating the concept. But I can absolutely understand why some clients would think that only getting a choice of one, maybe they don't feel that they feel that they are entitled to get multiple logo designs. But again, that comes down to onboarding the client, explaining your process, how it works, and why you have that process. Why do I have the one concept approach when others are doing 5 concepts and unlimited revisions? That's another thing as well that I've seen. I created a blog post many years ago about that, about unlimited revisions and how that's such a bad thing. And that was a warning blog for business owners, not for designers. I personally think if you're offering unlimited, logo design service, $200, 4 logo concepts, unlimited revisions until you're happy. That to me says that that's someone who has no confidence in their design skills, and they're just going to make change after change after change with the client directing those changes. Make it a little bit bigger, change the color, change the font. That's not a logo designer. That's just an art worker taking orders. And I would, and the blog was basically advising business owners to stay away from anyone that offered unlimited revisions, because they weren't going to end up with anything that was, worth their money. In my opinion, it's in my opinion. But I just think that's crazy. And from the designer side, blimey, offering someone unlimited revisions, you're another turn of phrase, you're in a hiding to nothing. With that, you're just going to, you could, some people will take extreme advantage of that and really have you, and it will feel like it's unlimited, and they're just constantly going, and the project will go on forever, and you'll end up making no money, probably end up costing you money over time because it's just taken so long. So please, if there's one thing that, if you're doing it right now and you're saying unlimited revisions, stop for your own sanity. Take that off. At most, you should be saying two revisions, and then any revisions after that you should be charging for. So you could say 2 free revisions, 2 free rounds of revisions, and then a fee for anything after that, because it's just going to be crazy for you, absolutely crazy. Reddit saying I went to graphic design school, but I didn't continue because I was bored at school and I learned by myself. College and design schools, universities, are not right for everyone, and I would say you don't have to go to art college or design school to be a designer. Some people have raw talent for it. I didn't have the raw talent. I'm very much, I'm a result of a lot of learning and teaching. And one thing I would say, though, is that if you go to a design school, you will learn the fundamentals of a lot of things about design, and some of that may be logo design, some of it be graphic design, but you'll learn about typography, you'll learn about this one's a touchy subject for me, grid systems, so designing using grid systems, and there's a great book on grid systems which I've got it as well, but I very rarely use grids. I did graphic design for a qualification, and I did animation for my degree. I don't really do animation anymore. I don't do animation anymore. My graphic design qualification was okay. Wasn't brilliant. And I've probably taught myself more about graphic design myself than I learned at the design college. And so a lot of what I do is based more on look and feel. Does it look right? Does it feel like it's balanced right? And to be honest, when I found out, I found out about the grid system afterwards. When I've put past work into a grid system, it's pretty much bang on for the grid systems. So I obviously have some innate talent towards things looking right on the page, and things looking balanced, because balance is key when it comes to design, knowing how things, the spacing, and it can be a matter of millimeters. You can ask David, actually, because David submitted a couple of logos to me in the past, and I've kind of said you just need to nudge that leading between that top line and the second line by a couple of millimeters, and I'm telling you, it will look better. And it does. It's a skill that you will learn, of getting the right balance of how close can you bring something together without it looking really awkward. Sometimes you might think that's going to be too close, but actually when you look at it from a balance perspective, optically balanced, it's right. Might not be mathematically correct. You know how when you're typing out stuff, you can have the leading on text on auto, and it will auto space it based on the size of the letters, the point size. That's fine for when you're typing, paragraphs of text. But when you're doing things like logos and stuff, you very rarely want to use, if you've got 2 lines, so like on screen here, the Rocky Brand logo there, if I had that on, if that was set to auto leading, then this would probably be, let me just, object, I think this might be grouped. Yeah. If I had that set, then this would probably be down here, because the Y would be on its own line. It wouldn't interact with the D, and that's just too wide. The leading's too far apart. But here we've got, that the tail of that Y is almost touching the D, and the D's going up and kind of intruding into the word your. But in terms of how that looks to the eye, it's got a really nice balance to it overall between the way all the letters are interacting. And that, by the way, is, that's kudos to Slavik, who designed the logo for me. He did a great job with all of that. So, yeah. So it looks like in the chat, David's cracking on with his puns. If you want to if you want to join I feel like I'm shilling this a lot, but if you like David's puns, definitely join the Rocky Brand Discord, because he is punerific in there, with his puns in there. So let's move down, because what time are we at? All right, okay, we've been going for an hour. So one important thing as well, and to be honest, when I get through these, we've probably talked about a lot of the points already, is you need to explain to them what a logo is, and it isn't the brand. And, we kind of mentioned it earlier on, that the logo is an identifier. It's not the brand. Some businesses say, oh, I'm starting a business, I need a logo, that's my brand. No, it's not. You need to be able to explain to them what a logo is and what a brand is. And that's where this book's going to come in and save the day for you. This is going to give you all the information that you need about what a brand is, because that logo really is just, I wouldn't even say the tip of the iceberg. That kind of makes it look like the brand, like the logo sits at the top of the brand. For me, it's in the brand, and things kind of come out from it or move into it. It's not a pyramid. For me, it's more, it's very interactive, and the logo's there to communicate different aspects, and also different aspects of the brand will make people think of the logo. So there's a lot of back and forth between everything. So you'll hear it kind of, the logo's like the tip of the brand iceberg. Yeah, it is. You can sort of say that, but for me, it's more embedded than that. So you need to be able to explain to them what that is, because otherwise, it's just going to make everything harder for you when you're going through and trying to take them through the process. Educate them. So always educate your clients. And that then leads into understand how strategy and design come together, which is why I mentioned this book. So the answer to that third point is this book. Now you're not trying to turn you don't need to turn your clients into, brand experts, because you're probably not a brand expert, a brand strategy expert yourself. You just need to know enough to explain to them what the differences are between, brand strategy and branding. So, because they may think they're the same thing and they're not, they're very different things. And one, is about explaining how that tells you the public, or shows the public what your brand actually is all about. Don't try to sound clever. I see this a lot as well, and people thinking that, I can talk about leading and kerning and stuff on these live streams and in my videos, because I'm trying to teach the terminology about what it is. But when you're speaking to clients, don't, talk to them if you're showing them, if we're talking about what we talked about just a minute ago about the Rocky Brand logo, I wouldn't say, you can see here that the leading's really quite wide, the gap's too big, and I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. I want to ungroup this. Why is that? Oh, here we go. Maybe we need to play with the kerning, or maybe we need to play with the tracking within there. Don't talk that way, because they probably don't know what that means. Just say spacing. Just say, what we need to do is, I'd quite like to look at changing the spacing between the letters, and I'd maybe want to decrease the spacing between the lines. Because if you're trying to make, it might feel like you're looking like you're knowledgeable and an expert, but all you're doing is you're just putting a wedge between you and the client. You're making, if they don't understand what you're talking about, then they can become puzzled, and they're not connecting with you on what you're trying to explain. So just use language that you would, use with most people. The language like tracking and kerning and leading and stuff, I really only use that language when I'm speaking to other designers. I don't use that language when I'm speaking to clients. Now, If you might have some clients who are really interested and they want to know the terminology, that's absolutely fine. Go in as deep as you want with that. But when it comes to explain even things, like JPEG, PNG, SVG, make sure you explain what it is to them. Don't just throw out a piece of terminology and then crack on. Just pause for a minute and say, I just want to check, do you understand what an SVG is, an SVG file? And if they're not sure, just quickly explain what it is. Tell them that that's a type of file that no matter what size you make it, it will always remain sharp and clear. Because you want to stay away from even saying, an SVG is a type of vector image. What's a vector? And you end up having to go and explain all this stuff. Just try to get it as basic as you can. You can make it big and small and it won't lose any quality. That's what an SVG file is. And then, with a JPEG, is made up of little pixels, little squares. So, you can make it smaller and it should be okay. But if we make it bigger, then it's going to become all blocky. Just use language like that and, they'll thank you for it because you're not making them, if they want to go away and look up what it means in a bit more detail, they can now. But just, don't try to sound clever when you're talking to them. Let's see. Oh, there's a few things in here. So, hi, Carl. I know this question is not on topic to the live stream, but I was just wondering if I could ask. I've been watching a few videos on your channel about branding, and I wondered if I got it. The definition of a brand is people's gut feeling towards you. It's what they say about when you're not in the room. Now you, the brand, can't say I'm XYZ because remember, a brand is what people say about you. But you can influence people's perceptions of you through branding, which creates positive interactions and experiences, which lead to trust and loyalty. Yeah, that's more or less it. The whole thing that, a brand is a person's gut feeling about your product or service comes from this book. Comes from Marty's book. He's the one that coined that. And then the thing about, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room is Jeff Bezos from Amazon. That's his quote. But yeah, so a brand strategy is kind of, the brand, the brand strategy is you're putting together the emotions and the values and the goals and you're creating the difference and the personality of the brand, and that's the strategy. And the branding is, as you said there, that's what you then use to convey that message across, to convey the emotion and the message that the brand strategy is put together. That's how you visually and verbally get that across and tie people to it emotionally and make the connection between the visuals and the strategic side. You can get in, it's really in depth. Once you start getting into things like brand archetypes and looking at the 12 main archetypes and how your target audience is going to have an archetypal mix and your brand has an archetypal mix, and you want to make sure that they both work really well. So you have to kind of work all that sort of stuff out. But again, that's going way deeper. But yeah, what you've said is you could probably get that more succinct, but that's more or less what it is. Yeah. And like I say, the brand gap will help solidify that for you. How do you respectfully withdraw from a contract due to the client demanding what you can't do or being funny about payments? And do you have any guides on writing up a contract and what to include? So contracts is a kind of a technical thing. And yeah, I'm not going to talk about contracts today because there are lots of different opinions on that. I don't have one. Well, I do, but it's very simple. In its most simplest form, it's if you don't screw me over, I won't screw you over. It's pretty much it. And that's probably not wise. I get that. There's probably people who have reeled back in horror at that. I'm a very trusting person. It's not really backfired on me yet, but this is where making sure that you're pre-qualifying clients and stuff is important. Do your research. If they're a limited company, you can check, how much money they've got in the bank. What's their trading record like, so you can actually see. With sole traders, freelancers, that type of thing, it's more difficult to do that, which is why it's important to get money up front. If you get a deposit up front, then they feel obligated to you. In terms of letting a client go, I've only ever really let 1 or 2 clients go midway through a project in my entire sort of 20-odd year career. And both of those times were due to the client basically being aggressive. I'm not going to get into what it was about, but yeah, it was it wasn't a nice experience. And when it came to those clients, I had one that was like particularly aggressive over something they said that I hadn't done, which was untrue, because I had all the evidence to show that I had done the work, and they said I hadn't done that work, and they demanded all of their money back, and didn't have a contract or anything. But to be honest, at that point, I just wanted to get rid of that client, and I just refunded him. I just refunded him all of his money and got rid of him, because I've learned over the years that battling with these types of people, for me, just takes up a lot of time and causes a lot of stress, whereas 99.9% of my clients are amazing to work with. So I'd rather just refund them their money and get short of them. And at that time, I wasn't, that I probably didn't have many projects on, so that money may have well been rent money. But again, the stresses that client was putting on me was too much. So I don't recommend that you kind of go down my route and not have a contract. I would recommend you get a contract. I'm now starting to work with much bigger businesses. I suppose my contract at the end of the day right now is based on the client accepting my proposal, signing, a signature, accepting the quotation, and them making that first deposit payment is a contractual basis with me. But I probably, like many people, need to get something which is a bit more formal, especially as I start to work with larger businesses on larger projects. And I'm also starting to involve other designers and subcontractors. So it's not just about having a contract with the client. I'm also going to need to have contracts with the people I'm subcontracting to make sure that everything goes smoothly, and they, if I'm paying for them to do a specific task within a project, that they follow through on their part of the deal. So yeah, like I say, some people are probably in horror that I don't have an official contract, but it is mostly just, I'll be nice to you if you're nice to me. I'm probably just too trusting in people. I'm very much a people person, and I think I'll probably have to change that, and not change being a people person. I'll have to change and get a contract so that I'm actually sending out something official. But in terms of letting people go, that needs to be done on a case-by-case basis, and just sort of what you think is right. For me, it's more, if I, with that guy, I let him go because it wasn't worth the pain to keep fighting it. But I have had other instances with projects where, let's say, printing. So maybe I've created a brochure or something, given it to the client to proofread. The client should always proofread something and sign off on it. When you're working on something, it's very easy to miss things. it's so easy to miss things. I've had typos on postcards that have had like 4 words on it, because you just, for some reason, you become blind to it and you don't see it, and you show it to someone else and they're like, oh, well, there's a typo there. I mean, it's rare. I'm not doing it all the time, but it has happened. And there has been times where the client has proofread it and they've signed off on it, and in those instances, I do have a form that a client has to sign to say that they've proofread it, they've checked it. I am not liable for any mistakes that come out in the printing, in terms of any typos, wrong images. The client has to do that. If it's printed and something is wrong in terms of it's an actual print defect, then I need to deal with that with the printer. And if I have to cover that, I have to cover that. Or if it's, I've actually made an error in terms of setting up the artwork, then I will cover that. But I've had experiences where the client has proofed it and there has been typos in it, and then they've said that I needed to pay for a reprint because I should have spotted it, because I was the one that put it together. But I've just, I've had my paperwork to say, you have signed this and you need to, if you want this reprinted, you have to pay for it. And it's not a great situation to be in. Certain clients get pretty unhappy at that. But in that instance, I have a contract for that, because I know that things can slip through the net. Even if you use things like spell checker, Grammarly, Hemingway, all that sort of stuff, you can still have a word which is a real word, but it's not the word that should be there, for example. So definitely, if you're doing printing for clients, make sure that you're getting them to sign something to say that they've proofread it. Let's see where we are here. David's saying, very true about not using too much jargon. If you use too much, the client may well nod in agreement, but they may also stop listening. Yeah. Mark, when talking through a design with a client and the word tonality came out of my mouth, the client refused to believe that was actually a word. It totally derailed everything. I could get that. If you say something and it can just throw things completely out the way. So you have to just, if you find yourself and you do use a bit of jargon, you'll get better at catching yourself when you say it. And when you've said it, you can catch yourself and say, what I mean by that is, and then you can kind of dumb it down almost. You can kind of just explain it in a way that makes sense to most people, rather than it being like a designery type word. And Lisa's saying that's AC's thanking me for that explanation, and Lisa's saying that's basically what a contract should do. In essence, I think I know which is referencing there. Legally, it may be a bit more complex, and that's the thing, is like, you can sort of say, I'm not going to screw you over if you don't screw me over, but if it goes to court, then you have nothing. It's purely a verbal contract, and you really want to have a written contract. So I may not have a contract, but what I do is I do keep, I keep all the email conversations. That's something that I do as well, is if I have a conversation with a client on the telephone, or even by video call, but it's not being recorded, and they ask me to do something, could you change that paragraph on page 3, I will tell them to email me that instruction. I won't just take it over the phone. And that's for their protection as much as mine. To make sure that I do that change. So if it goes to print and that change hasn't been made, then there's evidence in email that they asked me to do that. Or if it goes to print and there's something wrong, maybe there's a typo or something, then I can, I've got the email with the instruction and also the attachment that they gave me to copy and paste into that paragraph. So always keep, don't delete emails that have instructions in them. Keep them, because you never know when it might rear its head, because it might not just be, you know, the week that you deliver a printed item or something. It could be years down the road because no one spotted it, and then someone spots it like a year down the road, and then they come back and they say, you need to pay for a reprint, there's a typo in this, or, you know, we asked you to do this, and you go, no, you didn't. Here's the email where you asked me to do the exact opposite of that, and that's what's in the printed materials. So emails are a good one to have. What else we got here? So this was touched upon earlier on as well. Use definitive language when you're presenting the logo to the client. You know, you should be saying things like, I know, I believe, based on the data or based on the research, and I can't remember who said it earlier on, but, you know, this works for the logo. Don't say, and I still do it every now and again, but I catch myself, if you say, oh, I think this is the best thing. Now, in your head, you actually mean, you know, I know that this is the best thing for your brand. This is the best logo based on everything. Many people use the term I think to mean the same thing, but I think leaves doubt, you know, or you think, you're not sure, you know, and you don't want to have that. You don't want to have that doubt there. And I've caught myself even recently saying, I think this is the best color for the brand. And I've stopped myself, and I don't panic. I'll say it exactly the way I said it to the client. So we were talking about color, and I get really excited when I'm presenting. I get really passionate about the project. And I can't remember what the color was though, but it was something, let's say it was red. I always go to red as my color choice. Yeah, I think this is going to be really good, this color. I'm like, no. I'd say, you know what? I know this is going to be the best color. So I was able to catch myself saying, I think, and then go, no, you know what? I know this is the right color. So don't be afraid to, it's not contradicting yourself, but don't be afraid to come in and, you know, get rid of what it was you said and back it up with something more definitive. Because the last thing you want to do is realize that you've said, I think, and then kind of get a bit flustered, because that will make things even worse. You have to be presenting with confidence. And so even though you say, I think this is, just back up and go, you know what? I know that this is the right color for your brand. Based on what we looked at on our target audience, based on what we looked at about the emotions we want to get across, red is perfect for this brand. You just need to be really, really confident with it. And I've not got this written down, but just saying that there makes me, think, practice your pitch first a couple of times. Have your pitch document or whatever, your slide deck, and go through it and talk out loud. Even record yourself going through it so that you are saying things and you're punching on certain points to really emphasize the strength of certain elements of the logo. That will really go down well. If you kind of are a bit, you don't know what slide's coming next and you're a bit unsure, all of that has an effect on the viewer, on the client. Everything needs to be supremely confident when you're pushing that forward. That will also get rid of a lot of the ums and the ahs while you're trying to think. Just like I'm doing right now, because this is live and I've not practiced this, I'm kind of doing stuff off the cuff. So there's lots of ers and ums. You really don't want that when you're presenting to the client. You want to be fully assured and confident. And if you do have to pause, don't try to get the practice of not saying or ah. Just don't do anything. Just pause. Because that can be really effective as well. People will kind of lean in, waiting for you to say the next thing. So if you find that sometimes when you're nervous or excited about presenting, your brain can run faster than your mouth can, just pause and just let everything catch up and then just continue again. That will show confidence in your presenting skills as well. You want to take them on a lot of these things have been said by everyone in the chat, which is great to hear. Take them on a journey, tell their brand story as you're going through the process. And I don't mean just on the call. You do want to do that. You want to, when you're pitching it to them, you want to make sure that they can see their brand inside this thing. But it's important that the journey that they're going on with you is imbuing the story of their brand and what they want their brand to be, what the vision is for sort of 10 years from now, what's the mission, what is it that they're doing right now in order to get to that, visionary place that they have, what's the purpose, behind the brand, all of that stuff. Take that with you at every point. Every time you have a meeting with them, make sure that you're reiterating all that stuff so that their story is always part of the logo design that you're creating, and they're always linking that back. And again, when it gets to that point of you revealing the logo design, they feel it's part of that story. If you leave that out, it almost does leave the logo in isolation, just sitting on its own, as this kind of, yes, the logo probably has the brand name in it, but it just doesn't feel like it's connected to anything. But if you can connect it to their story, then they're going to feel much more, it's going to be more relatable to them. And I think that maybe, is that the last one there? No, I've got some in here. Showing relevant mock-ups. The easiest thing to do is, before you get to the point of presenting the concept, just ask them, what mock-ups would you like to see? And if they don't know what you mean by mock-ups, again, because that could potentially be, jargon they've never heard before, just say, what would you like to see your logo on? What things, what uses, do you see your logo being? Do you want it on a mug? Do you want, are you going to get some polo shirts done? Are you going to get some hats done? Because I can create mock-ups for you to help bring the logo to life. And that was mentioned as well, is that if you can bring the logo to life, because many people are not designers. You as a designer can design a logo on a white page, but you can visualize in your head how that's going to look on a business card, how it's going to look on a mug, how it's going to look on a water bottle, how it's going to look on the side of on a big billboard on the side of a building. Many people can't do that visualization, so you have to do it for them. And if you can do it with 3 or 4, 5 or 6 mock-ups, what happens is it then trains them to start to see the logo that you've got on screen in front of them. They then start placing that logo on other things, and they get excited, and it builds a buzz. If you just present to them a logo on a white page and no mock-ups, you're going to struggle, unless it's the best looking logo in the world. It's the mock-ups that will sell it. 100%. Mock-ups will sell your logo. Mock-ups will sell mediocre logos. I like creating simple logos. Simple logo designs are what I love to do. And on their own, on a page, they might not kind of mean much. But if I can show the logo on things and how you can make patterns from the elements of the logo, and how versatile it is and how adaptable that, what looks like a really, really simple shape, and the client's like, what am I supposed to do with that? I could have done that. That's the thing you'll hear. I could have done that. But then when you show them all of the things that you're able to do with it, they'll think, I would never have been able to do that. I wouldn't have thought of that. I would never have imagined that could be like that. That's where your skills are going to really come in handy at that point. But it's important that it's relevant. You don't want to have, I see logo mock-ups all the time where it's like embossed gold foil on a leather wallet. Okay, it looks impressive, but what does that mean to the client that you're presenting in front of? If it's not relevant to their business in any way, or something that they are likely to use, it's pointless having it in that presentation. In fact, it's probably going to be a negative aspect, and you're better off not having it at all. So always make sure that you're presenting on relevant mock-ups. If you haven't asked them, just look at the type of business that they're in. Look at their industry sector. If they're like a big construction company, put on a hard hat. Put on some building signage on the side of a van. Think about where they're likely to use it. And honestly, I think back and I can't believe that I never used to use mock-ups early on. It blows my mind that it wasn't something that I thought of. Yes, I also used the gold foil on things, or the classic 3D logo sign coming off of an angled wall. That's fine if that's something that the client's going to want. Let's say they've got a massive, like, they own their own building, and you walk into a reception area. That's probably going to be something which is really cool. So that has its place. But it wouldn't have its place if you're putting it on there, a marble wall with a neon lit back sign. If it's for a little coffee shop, doesn't make sense. Show it in a more rustic way, that's going to make more sense to the coffee shop owner. Let's see. Oh, hey, Slavik. Slavik's on the stream. He's saying the streams bring so much value to the table. I know that Slavik's going to be starting up his own YouTube channel. Just giving you some accountability there. So look forward to that. I know that he's going to be doing it in Polish, his native language, which I think is going to be great, and I think that will set him apart from a lot of the other YouTubers out there. Ephraim's saying, I would choose mock-ups based on the industry the client is in, yeah. But not everyone does, and that's the thing. That's what I was saying at the start. You've got that curse of knowledge that you would presume many people are doing mock-ups and stuff, and they're not. And it can be, it can be a real game changer to do, to have things like that. Some people, there's an argument as well when it comes to mock-ups about whether you should be creating your own, taking your own photography and doing that, or whether you can use like off the shelf ones like from Envato Elements or even Placeit. So Placeit is actually web browser based. You don't use Photoshop or anything. You just upload your logo and it will place it onto things. I prefer using Photoshop ones because I have much more control over what I can output. But for me, the argument about, you say, I see those mock-ups all the time, be more original. The only reason they're saying that is because they're designers and they see those mock-ups all the time. Your client doesn't. Your client's never seen that mock-up in their life before. So for them to see stationery in a sort of a 3D isometric view with a business card and an envelope, it's going to look brilliant to them. They're like, that looks so cool. That's so professional. But as a designer, you've probably seen it a million times. You're like, I'm so bored with that. Let's see something new for a change. So I see those discussions all the time in like the design forums, and I just ignore them because that's just designers talking to designers. It's not real world experiences for clients. So if you see that, don't feel like you have to suddenly be able to, create your own mock-ups and learn about bump maps and, lighting sources and smart objects. You don't. You can use free mock-ups, or you can, have an Envato Elements account and use stuff from there. It's no biggie. Don't feel inferior because you're using, off-the-shelf mock-ups. Some people get a little bit elitist about that, and it's just like, just go away. Just go away, And then I think that's the last one. So the last one, which is super important to me, is give yourself and the client time to think. And this kind of ties in a little bit, I suppose, to pricing. Because if you're not charging much money, you're going to need to be churning out a lot of logos to make money. And so you're going to be like, I can design a logo in a day. Great. But for me, who does maybe a week's worth of research before I start doing the logo, that's not going to work for me. And that's what you'll probably find as you start to get into this more strategic side before you start designing. You're going to start to see how much more time you're going to need to take, which is going to equate to having to charge more. So I see a lot of people who say that, they take a day or two, 1 to 2 days, and that's part of their pitch. I see it on their website, the logo, first drafts in 24 hours, finished logo in 72 hours. Great. If you can do that, fine, But for me, when my clients come to me, my clients are told it will take 6 to 8 weeks if they're just doing, if they just want a logo, because I do still need to do some strategy work. And if it's a full brand strategy with identity, then it's 3 months plus, depending on the scope of the strategic work and research that needs to be done. So, and the reason it's like 6 to 8 weeks is that I need time away from the project. So you go in deep and you maybe spend like 4 solid hours or something sketching and just trying to get ideas. There comes a point where you can't really push yourself any further, and you need to take, there's this, you need to sleep on it. So you need to walk away from it so that you can come back with fresh eyes. And it might be that something that you thought wasn't very good, when you come back at it after having time to think and, sleep on it, you actually, you know what, that actually is a really good concept. I'm going to go forward with that. And then there's the opposite, where you might be like, that's the one, that's the concept. But then when you come back to it, you go, actually, that's quite weak. I need to spend more time designing. And so I like to give myself plenty of space between when I'm working on the certain phases of the project. And it's the same for the client. The client needs time to think, not to go away and review sketches and stuff, but I'll be having conversations with them, and most clients won't have done much in terms of design or branding or strategy. And so at the end of the call, you'll have left them with probably a lot of questions they need to ask themselves, a lot of thoughts about design, a lot of thoughts about their business. You'll be asking them questions of their business that they probably haven't thought about themselves. And so they need time to think on those clearly, to come up with the answers to give back to you. And you don't want to be getting answers which are instant, because they're probably not the right answer. So you need to give them time as well. And so if you're giving them time, then that's, so you need time and they need time, and that then stretches things out. And you're probably going to have clients who come to you who are like, I need a logo, and I need it in X time frame, whatever time frame they ask for. And a bit like I said earlier on, if someone comes to me and says, I need a logo and it's Monday and I need it by Friday, then they won't be my client, because I won't work to that time scale. Plus, I'm probably working on other projects. I'm not sitting at 9 a.m. Monday waiting on a project for that week. I probably could do a logo in a week if that was the only thing that I was working on. But that would be 2 or 3 days research, a day conceptualizing, and a day to create the final concept. But that doesn't give me any downtime. That's just like day, and I need gaps between that. So everybody works differently, though, and I'm aware that some people need to do the work quickly, but I think you can do the work quickly if you're not creating logos based on any sort of strategic stuff, and you're just creating logos that look good. I think you can do that because you've got all those challenges out there as well. It's like, here's design a logo for a coffee shop. There's no pushback. There's no strategic stuff that you've got to meet. You just get to create a cool looking logo. And I see so many cool looking logos, but to me, that's not real world designing. That's, if it's not for an actual real life client, I wouldn't say it doesn't count as a logo. It's definitely a logo. But if I didn't have the restrictions or like the, constraints of having to design for a client, I could be knocking out amazing looking logos all the time. Just clever, negative space stuff, because I wouldn't have to be doing it for any specific purpose. The purpose would be make the cleverest, coolest looking logo I can. And so those are good for learning design skills and software skills, but it's not going to teach you to be a better logo designer per se. The way to become a better logo designer is to be designing logos for clients. That's the only way to become better, because all the stuff I've talked about today, those soft skills, getting the client involved, communication, language, pushbacks, pricing, you don't have to deal with any of that with a logo challenge. So, where is the real value in the logo challenge other than probably getting better at sketching and conceptualizing ideas? But it's not going to help you in this area. And this is the area where we make, where you sell the logos. And that's what we're here for. We're here to make a living. And so we need to know these skills. Let's see. Lee's saying, as long as it fits the client, I don't think it matters how often the mock-up has been used. Creating your own mock-ups can be great when looking for something very specific, though. Yeah, I mean, if you've got the skills and stuff, and I know, Lee's, that you've got photography skills, so that would come in handy for you as well. You can do that. And, there's benefits to that. But again, I think it comes down to, as you grow and as you start to get bigger clients and bigger projects, the budgets can increase and you can hire photographers to do, that's their task, right? I want you to go away and I want you to, here's a mood board of the type of imagery that we want. Can you go away and kind of create some product mock-ups or do some product shots that fit that type of mood and stuff? But we don't all have that ability. We're not all, the size of, Pentagram and stuff, who have probably got their own trademark lawyers in house and stuff like that. We're all much smaller businesses, so we have to kind of work with what we have. And if that means using free off-the-shelf mock-ups, then so be it. David's saying, I've written many brilliant songs at night and woken up to many bad ones in the morning. I've done that with logo designs many a time. Mark's saying, do you ever do clean professional placeholders to get the client through till you can do the in-depth work? All right, so just sort of give them something quick and dirty before. Essentially, my advice to most clients is just pick a font that looks professional and just have their name typed out. Don't try to create a logo, because the problem there is if you do a quick logo, it's not a problem, but if you do a quick logo and you start using it, that then starts to become attached to the brand, and it might not be the right thing for the brand because it's just a quick and dirty thing to have something. So it's much better if it's just even just black and white text, just have the name there, because it's not going to be for long. It's just going to be for the length of the journey, and max, maybe 6 months max, right? Which seems like a very long time, but everything's going to be worked on and stuff like that. And usually I can, I'll just take that on and say, look, I'll go away and I'll pick a font for you, and we'll type it out and you can use that. I'll just outline it and give it to them so they can use it on their website, and tell them what the font is if they need to type it. But I don't really do quick logos. So let's just say I do quick word marks where I don't do any design. I just type out the name of the company. Sometimes it might be actually when you type it out, you can make some really quick adjustments some visual stuff, change some of the letters visually, and it might look quite nice, and work that way. But yeah, I don't create symbols for them on a quick one. Do your clients usually know what the concept of your logo is before you present it to them? I don't think they do. Because we discuss typography, we discuss maybe whether it's going to be a word mark or a combination mark. Because I'll say, I think this is going to, there we go, I'm saying it again, I think. Based on everything, a combination mark's going to be the best for you because it will give you flexibility in using a symbol and a word mark independently, because you have these situations where you will be presenting, whatever. So they will probably have an idea of the category of that the logo will be in. But even then, I might, when I'm laying stuff out, I might change it. So no, they don't really know what the design's going to be. And in a way, that's often better because they've been part of the journey. They actually get excited about the reveal, and it's probably more of a nervous excitement for them than a worried excitement, or a worried nervousness, because you're just they should be confident in your abilities because they're you've taken them through and they know that you're doing all the right stuff and the right thinking. But there are, like I said, that I've said there are times where the clients maybe like, oh, that's not what I was expecting, because they would have maybe had something in their head. But then you go, you show it, and then you go through the presentation and you use the mock-ups and you show how it works, and 99 times out of 100, they go with it. But it's also important as well to say to a client, you don't have to love the concept straight away. In fact, you're probably not going to love it. You're going to see that it fits the brand and you understand how it fits the brand, but you may not love it. It may not be love at first sight. But what will happen is, as you start to use the logo and as you start to create more branding and you see it in use, you will start to love it. And it will get to a point where you can't see it being anything else. That's our logo. It couldn't be anything else. I think it's dangerous to build up the expectations with a client that when you reveal it, they're going to fall in love with it instantly. Because if they don't, the doubts creep in again. Oh, maybe this isn't the right thing for us then. I don't love it. And I've had clients who have loved their logo and have said it outright. Oh, it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted, and it suits the brand down to the ground. But I have had other clients go, I think we're going to have to sit with this for a little while and see where it goes. That doesn't worry me when they say that, because I know that that's a natural thing and it will build up. It's a bit like, when an actor gets announced for a film and you're like, whose idea was it to have them play that part? And then after you see the film, or they've maybe done a couple of you can't imagine anyone else being in that part because they make it their own. They make it. Nobody else can do it. Like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and recasting him, even though as a comic book person, Hugh Jackman is about 1.5 feet too tall for that character. Wolverine's a short little guy in the comics. But, they got Hugh Jackman, who's 6 foot whatever, and that's now become the movie version. And so he's made that his own. When they, cast someone else, I'm sure there's going to be a whole, they can never replace him. But I'm sure whoever gets it will make it their own, a bit like the different Spider-Men and stuff. So logos are the same for me. They will fit their place, and they will grow over time. So just be careful about promising clients that they will love their logo as soon as they see it. Set expectations. Don't set them low though. Don't say you're probably not going to love this when you see it. Don't say things like that. But just don't be too get them too worked up that it's not going to, if they don't love it, that it's not the right one for them. It's all part of the journey. It's just all part of building up, expectations and what a logo is. As soon as they know what a logo is and what its job is, then they will view the logo in a different way compared to someone who hasn't had any of that education whilst working with you, and they're just expecting to see the best logo they've ever seen, and it's for their business. And if that doesn't happen, then it's back to the drawing board. When they rule out all 4 of your concepts and you've made multiple unlimited revisions and they're still not happy, that's the area that you can be in, or you can do what we've got on screen here, go through all of these stages. What's Hassan saying? I need your help. Where can I get logo design history? I mean, a history of brand logo design. There's pretty much all logo books delve into the history of logos. I kind of showed, if you go to, where's my flipping page here? If you go to, Hassan, if you go to this link here and have a look at my logo books, if you look at things like Logo Design Love and ID and stuff like that, not Logo Lounge. Logo Lounge is more a collection of, it's just a collection of logos. People submit the logos to Logo Lounge. But things like Logo Design Love, they'll have, case studies about logos and, stuff like that. But in terms of the history of logos, I don't know if I've actually read a book about the history. I probably have and just forgotten. But I'll have a look. I'll have a look actually and see. And I'm just going to ask Hassan, if you haven't already, this is not a sneaky way to get you into it, but one of the things that we have in the Discord group that we have is we have a channel for books and resources, and I've been asking the members to drop in their favorite books, and if I can find a couple of good books on logo history, logo design history or whatever, I'll drop it into that channel. So it's very much worthwhile joining the Discord, even just for the resources in the different channels that we have. In fact, do I have Discord open? I do. So this is Discord here. Let me just, and you'll see here that we've got some different channels. We've got tips and advice channel. David's dropped a tip in here on how he tackles kerning. It was a really, really nice little tip actually. And then we've got some stuff in here. We were talking about the brand gap actually. We were talking about the book that I mentioned earlier. We're talking about, Steal Like an Artist, The Artist's Way, and then there was a good book, Logo Design Theory, that David mentioned as well. And I'm going to check that out actually. And then here's me sort of linking through to there. But if you join the Discord, you'll get access to all of that chat that we talk about in there. So yeah, just jump in there, and that'd be cool. Right, so I think that's the end of that chat. What time is it? David, I'm probably going to disappoint you right now because we're running out of time. And David submitted a logo in the Discord for us to chat about, but I want to give it some time to go through. So we will focus on that on the next one, David. I can give you some feedback on it in the Discord. I'll give you some private feedback on that just so that you can move forward with it. But I would like to share thoughts and stuff on the live stream if you're cool with that. I'm looking at my webcam here. I should be looking at this camera. If you're okay with that, then we can save that for the next live stream. But as I say, just to let you move forward, I will give you some feedback, personal feedback in the Discord, so that you can move forward with that. So yeah, let me know if that's okay, because it's nearly, we're getting 2 hours in, so I don't want the stream to go much longer than that, because it can get a bit tiring for everyone to do that. Okay, David's cool with that. Cheers, David. I really appreciate it. Lisa's saying, I'm guessing you can go far back to animals being branded. Well, that's essentially where branding comes from. The term branding is from branding animals, and then logos themselves come from, pictographs, from, symbols like painted onto, caves and stuff. That's where, it's essentially what a logo is. It's a symbol. And I think I actually probably just talk about that in one of my very first YouTube videos, which I find cringeworthy to watch these days. What is a logo? I think I talk about it. There. I think I try and tell a joke at the start of that video, and it's just so cringe. But we've all got to start somewhere. So yeah. And what I'm just going to very quickly. This doesn't really tell a story or anything. But it's just an example of it's a bit of a mishmash of a document of a logo presentation. I didn't design this logo. This is the logo that they had, and it's a pretty terrible logo. This is actually Tax Assist Accountants is actually like a UK wide. Maybe not UK wide, maybe it's just in England, I'm not sure. But it's a big franchise, and there's a lot of accountants that are part of this Tax Assist Accountants. And it's terrible. There's so many things. It's terrible. I would love for that to have, appear on the live stream for critique. Would love to know what your thoughts are on this logo in the chat once you see it, because I know that the stream takes a little while to catch up. But this is the original logo and the client. So this was a company that I do some branding work for, called the Profitable Firm, and they specialize in working with accountants. So they're a creative agency that niche in the accountancy space, and I help them out with brand identity work. And so this is one of their clients, and the client had come out of this franchise and they were starting up on their own, and they had come up with the name Heighten. So Heighten, Heighten. Blessed is saying, can you share the brief? So I can't share the brief for this because I don't really have it written down. But basically, they were rebranding. So they had their own. So the way that this works when I work with the Profitable Firm is their client managers do a lot of the brand strategy work. And then I get brought in and I review what they've done in order to create the logo. So it still follows my process, but I'm just not doing the strategy elements. Profitable Firm do the strategy elements, and then I come in and I use the strategy as the basis for creating the logo for them. So, like I say, they're changing their name to Heighten, and so I went away and just kind of, this is a really quick Cliff Notes version of creating this brand. But generally what I'll do is if I can, I'll try to find some meaning behind the name, as well as what the business is trying to do as well, the feeling that they're trying to get across. So to raise or lift something to a higher position, to think and function on a higher level, to make better and to advance. And these statements all relate to how they can help their accountancy clients, or their business clients, through their accountancy services, which is not just bookkeeping, but it's also, financial advice, investment advice. There's a lot of stuff that could do well there. I don't know why I've got a capital M on that, but hey ho. And so the logo that I was trying to develop was to kind of, have the word heighten and bring in some element that kind of got across that they were raising things up and lifting things up. So this is obviously just like one or two ideas that I was kind of working on. Could the H be a ladder? Could there be an arrow inside the some negative space aspects to it. Kind of look like the H is levitating, and arrows and stuff like that. So I was playing around. I even had some stairs. So this is what I'm talking about earlier. Like a lot of logo concepts can be pretty terrible, but you have to get them down, and you have to get them on paper, or iPad, digital paper. Just get them out your head. Get them down. Nothing's wrong. Just get it all out there. So anyway, there was a couple of things in here that I wanted to take forward. And this here, so this is the actual logo. This is the final thing. So we've kind of gone in, like from early concept sketches to boom, final logo, which took a lot of, there was a lot of tweaking and stuff to get things, angles and everything right here. So the way that the logo works is obviously we've got the upward slope, and it's kind of like a bar chart, which is like a classic accountancy thing, without it looking too much like a bar chart and still looking like a letter H, so it still reads like the word heighten. So you can see here I've got, and then the G was adapted a little bit so that it looks more like a flowing arrow, and the arrow points up to the slope on the G. So you've kind of got this momentum, of swinging around and moving upwards. The tracking is really, really tight. Again, to sort of bring in the closeness that the team have, and how much they work together and very closely with their clients. Just spotted there that Lisa says, I like how the G is sort of an arrow. So that's probably the slight delay of me talking as well about what the G is. And then 10 sort of almost stands out on its own because we've got the H going higher up. And that was just like a reference to, because they'd mentioned, they can help their clients 10x their business. So 10 was, it's part of the word. It's joined to, high here. It's joined to the heightened part. And then making sure that they could have a nice identifiable social icon is important these days. You need to make sure that they've got something that when it's in a Twitter feed or a Facebook feed, it's a really, really small size, so it needs to be legible. You see a lot of logos that are used, and then they're just, there might be long logos and then they're just cropped, and you only see the middle part of it. It's just terrible, or it's squashed, and you've got a ton of empty space at the top and bottom, and then you can't read the word which is in the middle. So I don't leave icons and things as an afterthought. I try to always have that in mind when I'm creating the main logo design. And then the fonts that were used were Montreux Classic Black and Work Sans, which will be the supporting paired font. So that was sort of a very quick presentation, but one of the things that we wanted to talk about as well was color with this. And I really liked it in black. I like a lot of my logo, because I design mostly in black and then add color later. And sometimes black can feel like it's the right one. It just fits the brand better, and then you can support it with a color palette, and they can use splashes of color elsewhere. So you can see here that I actually had this in the slide because I had an idea that black would be what we'd go for, but I wanted to make sure, I don't know why I've done that. I wanted to make sure that we discussed it. So I actually had that as part of the presentation. Let's discuss color. So we discussed color, and then just to kind of get the point across, I talked about, where the strap line would go as well. Not every brand's going to have a strap line, by the way. They will, some will, some won't. But usually I'll drop a strap line or a tagline onto a logo just to see how it balances out in case the client wants it, at some point in the future. Because having to add one afterwards, if it wasn't intended, can sometimes be really difficult to do depending on how the logo worked out. Heighten was fine because it's got just a flat baseline, but some logos you'll have a letter that comes down in the middle or maybe off to one side, and then you're left with a short space on either side, which can be tricky to work with. So I presented all of that, and then what I did was I went through the entire thing again, but this time just added in a splash of yellow. So where everything was all of these kind of supporting shapes, so this is obviously the H, the negative space of the H here in this shape, I just dropped yellow in to show how the yellow and the black create a really nice contrast, and the yellow adds a really nice sunshine, positivity, vibrancy to the black and white. It's it just was like poof, in your face. And just again using the H and the upwards, always pointing upwards and forward motion in the background, and showing how the yellow and black could work as well. And I've not gone for like a pure yellow. It's more of an orangey because you want it to be able to stand off of white. Yeah, if you've got a bright yellow, it can sometimes not come off the white very well. And then what I did was went through again a third time and showed how versatile the logo assets can be as holders. So for holding imagery which is relevant to the business and that also represents I'm talking about upward momentum and growth here. So here I used growth charts. Here we're talking about closeness and teamwork. So I used a really cheesy stock photo of people putting their hands together. And then here 10x your business. So this is upwards graph. So it's all the same. It's the same slides, if everything in the same place, but just using color and imagery to show them that this may look like a really simple logo, but there's a lot of meaning behind it, and you can also use different shapes to hold different meaning depending on what they're talking about. So this is the page about typography. So I dropped in some classic letterpress type in the background there, and then talking about color, dropped in an image there that has a spectrum of color in it. And then going to the strap line. So that was me then taking that, talking about the actual structure of the logo and how that would work. And then I just created some really simple mock-ups that they discussed, that we'll need some business cards, and we'll need our stationery to be done. So I just gave different options on how, so black on white or white on black with a color image. Same here with the letterhead. You could have just a really kind of a toned back watermark, or you could use an image inside the H. Simple black and white stationery or color, and you can see here I'm using really vibrant colors in the background as well to just show that they can pretty much use any color they want with black and white. To give off different feelings. Just showing the icon on some mugs. They talked about pin badges. They talked about having, the staff having fairly casual t-shirts. So they wanted to see, how that would look mocked up. They talked about advertising and how, you can sometimes advertise on vehicles. So showing, how you can lay something out, and especially with this, it's an unusual shape, but using imagery, so this is obviously someone standing at the top of a mountain, and that kind of ties into the name Heighten. And then we've got, I've got a strapline here now underneath, taking your business to new peaks, which just ties everything back to that name. And then here, this is actually, I talked about Placeit, which is a web-based mock-up generator. This was actually created in Placeit. So I just created the dummy poster. I mean, I've even got lorem ipsum text on it, and took that to the Placeit website, uploaded the graphic, and it did the placement of it on there. It's just a really nice angle, and it really shows off that H really well. And you've got the Heighten, and it's kind of the whole thing goes up to an angle. So for me, it's just important that everything that you do in the presentation in some way speaks of the brand and the wider branding, because you're just reinforcing that message at every single point. This is they had 3 premises. This is how their premises looked at the time that we were creating this new logo for them. So it's pretty blue and yellow. And so what I did was I took some time, and it took me a while because I had to get rid of all this stuff off the windows and everything. And I just mocked up in Photoshop just a potential of how the new branding could look. Much more kind of cooler, modern, and clean. I think they've actually gone with something not far off this. I mean, the angles on some of this stuff are a bit wonky, but I didn't have much time to do it. But it's not as in your face as this, which looks really dated. Actually, it actually looks like a holiday. It looks like a travel company. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the colors, like the blue and the yellow, like the sun in the sky or the sand, and that looks like the pound sign looks like a wave crashing over the sea. So it just looks like a holiday company to me. And then this is just like a really simple one-page logo guide, which I give to clients. And the color palette you can see here is super vibrant. Really, really vibrant color palette there for that. And this is their website. So you can see here, this is their homepage. They've got this image of someone, going to new peaks, and then we've got the bright colors going through the page. You can see here in the background, this is a pattern which I created out of the H shapes, so they can have this repeating pattern going on in the background as well. And then we've got like bars going across. Each of the pages has a significant image about that's relevant to what they're talking about on the page. But it's turned out really well compared to where they came from, which was this. So I just wanted to quickly share that with you all, and just show you an example of part of the presentation process that I have when I'm giving it to clients, and all of the different elements. There are sections missing from there, which I couldn't show, but that gets across most of the stuff that I do. So let's see. Just check and see if there's any more questions. Hassan's asking if it's possible to talk to me personally. Unfortunately, not really. I get a lot of requests to talk to me personally. The best way to do that is to join the Discord, and next week we do a bi-weekly, which is every 2 weeks, not twice a week. Every 2 weeks we do an Ask Me Anything. So you could join that. If you're in the Discord group, then if it's a 5-minute chat that you want, then we could probably sort something out. But you could imagine I get a lot of requests to have one-to-one calls and things like that, and if I said yes to one, then I'd have to do it for more people. So join the Discord, and you've got a better chance of catching my eye, and I'll maybe be able to help you out. Okay. Mark saying he's definitely going to use Placeit for sure. That's nice. If you are going to use Placeit, it isn't. They do have some free stuff, but it's not. They don't have the biggest selection. All I'd say is if you are going to use Placeit, let me know, because I've got an affiliate link. It won't cost you any more, but I'll get a couple of quid off of it. So let me know. Let me know if you're going to sign up for a subscription, and I can give you my affiliate link. Caroline's saying exactly what I thought. It looks like an old holiday brand, Thompson's. Yeah, it looks like something like that. It just looked like I expected the posters in the window to be for like holiday destinations. But yeah, thanks for your feedback, guys, on that presentation, which I showed at the end. So we're just past 2 hours. It's been a good one today. I've enjoyed it. I was a little bit nervous about it. I always get a little bit nervous about any live stream. I really do, just in case I don't come across. I've not practiced it, so I'm like, oh, is this going to make sense to people? I think it did, but I enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of that. my very last pitch for Discord. Join the Discord group. Doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free, and there's some really good conversations going on in there. And the more people we can get in, the more conversations that will be started, and we'll all learn from one another. Believe me, I learn from people all the time. I don't know everything, and people can come up with like really cool little tips, and especially it's in the main books, really good books. So one of the books that was mentioned when I showed the Discord earlier, I hadn't heard of it, and I hadn't realized that the author had been interviewed by Ian on his Logo Geek podcast. So I still need to check that out. So it's all good for me as well. I'm learning a lot from you guys, but hopefully everyone that joins the Discord is learning a lot from me, and we can all up our game and be better for our clients, but also become better versions of ourselves. And it's not dirty to talk about it, but make more money. I want everyone in the Discord to become successful. If they're looking to become a designer or are a designer, I want you to be successful. And if I can help you to do that, great. That's why I'm here. I want to help. So going to call it a day, and see you in the Discord. And if I don't, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time on the next Rocky Brand live stream. So until I see you then, stay creative, folks. Bye for now.